Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Hope you are doing well. It is the 28th of January, Sunday evening, the 12th of Shvat, 5778 here in Gush Etzion, Israel. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great week. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with me on email, josh@thelandofisrael.com, Twitter @Josh Hasten, and on Facebook, Joshua Hasten. Hope you're doing well. It was a historic week here in the land of Israel. I had the unique and wonderful opportunity to be in the Knesset this past week, listening to the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, from my home state of Indiana, a fellow Hoosier, deliver a historic, momentous, there aren't enough words and adjectives to describe how wonderful and great and grand and meaningful it was to hear the Vice President speak. He had, 15 standing ovations talking about the U.S.-Israel relationship. And when Mike Pence, the Vice President, says it, he means it. Not putting anything or threatening anything against Israel and the Israelis, putting any of the onus on us for a lack of a peace process here in Israel with our neighbors. None of the rhetoric which we saw over the past 8 years, thanks to the Obama and Kerry administration, completely different, night and day. And this was truly from the heart, the speech that the Vice President gave. If you haven't heard it, I'm sure you could find it on YouTube or any of the Israeli news sites, or anywhere really. Go to the social media and find it, and you will be blown away if you haven't by now. Wanted to start the show with that, even though that was towards the beginning of the week, but it was just unbelievable. Truly an honor to be present and to receive the invitation to be in Israel's parliament and listening to a true friend speaking about the state of Israel. On today's show, we're going to talk news. We're going to get to everything going on in the world of news here in Israel. We've had some great interviews over the past couple of weeks. If you missed any of the shows, you can go back and check them out on thelandofisrael.com. And, of course, I always encourage you to listen to all the wonderful shows with all the wonderful hosts. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, also making some comments this week off the cuff there in Davos to the press this past Thursday in regard to Israel. He did meet with the Prime Minister of Israel. The president, according to Times of Israel, said that he would no longer transfer monetary aid to the Palestinians until they entered peace negotiations with Israel. And he also scolded the Palestinian leadership's reaction to his decision last month to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. He said the following, quote, "That money is not going to them unless they sit down and negotiate peace, because I can tell you that Israel does want to make peace. They're going to have to want to make peace too, or we're going to have nothing to do with it any longer." This, the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Now, in my opinion, I would rather have, this is great, but I would rather have the president say, we are done with the PLO, the PA, Mahmoud Abbas. Israel should send them packing once and for all. That would be the ultimate. But this is still good, putting the onus on the Palestinian Authority, recognizing that the U.S. transfers to them millions and millions of dollars each and every year, and they are not in any way, shape, or form preparing their people for peace, not willing to enter negotiations. The president upset that Mahmoud Abbas and the PA did not extend an invitation to Vice President Pence to meet with them. He took it as a great insult, did President Trump. Very upset by that. He went into, I'm not going to get into all the details here or quote verbatim, but he talked about the fact that the U.S., to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in aid, are transferred to the Palestinian Authority, and the president is questioning that. This is amazing. Who would have thought that we'd be in this situation here today? Nikki Haley also the other day ripping Mahmoud Abbas as insulting President Trump, and also scolding Mahmoud Abbas for his treatment of Israel, the lies. If you remember his speech, his 2-hour rant, anti-American, anti-Israel rant, which he delivered to a PLO meeting just about 2 weeks or so ago, totally fabricating the history of the state of Israel and Jewish people's ties to the state of Israel, making up all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories. I mean, it was an anti-Semitic rant, to put it bluntly. So Nikki Haley this week taking him, Mahmoud Abbas, to task, President Trump doing the same. But again, I would say once and for all, and I think certainly I would say Israel needs to take the role in breaking off that relationship with the PA. There are those who argue that, no, we can't do that because of security. We can't break off our security ties to the Palestinian Authority. I have faith in the IDF. I think the IDF can do a good job, a better job, and we shouldn't have to rely or count on the Palestinian Authority ever again to help us in any way, shape, or form, whatever little they were doing. And remember, many times the PA themselves, the policemen in the PA, turned their guns against Israelis. I wouldn't count on them. I wouldn't trust them. And I think Israel can get the job done. So in response, of course, to everything Donald Trump and Mike Pence, the vice president, say, it just, causes the PA and those living under the control to go off on the deep end. This here, also reported by the Times of Israel, Palestinian television on Saturday aired a video of Palestinians carrying out a mock execution of U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence. Effigies of the U.S. leaders were hanged and burned in a street near Bethlehem, Beit Lechem. So if the president, and I'm sure he is paying attention to this type of activity, that is what they truly think of you, regardless of what you say about Jerusalem. I mean, that is how they view the United States, the great Satan, remember, and Israel, of course, the little Satan. So I would have nothing to do with the PA. Perhaps the president feels like he has to pay lip service, at least, trying to encourage or threaten the PA. But I say cut off all ties with them. Send them packing. Send them back to where they came from. Anywhere they've gone, they've caused chaos and destruction and terror. And the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, and all of them should be sent packing. Now, switching to what is or was today's Sunday top news, the situation with Poland. If you have not heard yet, Israel strongly opposes a bill, get this, that passed the lower house of the Polish legislature on Friday, which would make it illegal to attribute complicity in the Holocaust to the, quote, Polish nation, or to use terms such as Polish death camps. Prime Minister Netanyahu said on Saturday night. Under this draft law, the use of the term, quote, Polish death camps could lead to fines or up to 3 years in prison. 3 years in prison if you're in Poland, if you're a Polish citizen, say, well, the Poles played a strong role in the Holocaust, or you use the terminology, I don't know how exact this legislation is, Polish death camps, of course, referring to those camps that were, in fact, in Poland, Auschwitz, Birkenau, Treblinka, Sobibor, Majdanek, and the rest of them. So what is the Polish government trying to do by passing this? I mean, they're essentially trying to downplay or whitewash the role that Poland had in siding with the Nazis. Not everybody, not every Pole, but enough of them that they should take responsibility and not try to whitewash their role in what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust. Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum here in Jerusalem, issued a statement opposing the draft legislation because, quote, it could blur the historical truth about the assistance the Germans received from the Polish population during the Holocaust. According to Yad Vashem, there is no doubt, in their view, the term Polish extermination camps is a historical misrepresentation. So they don't think that term should be used because the camps were set up in Nazi-occupied Poland in order to murder Jews and within the framework of the final solution. However, according to Yad Vashem, restrictions on statements made by scholars and others regarding the Polish people's direct and indirect complicity in the crimes committed on their lands during the Holocaust are a serious distortion. So that's Yad Vashem's position. Now, we all know of the Polish role You can talk about after the Holocaust, when some Jews came back to their homes in Poland only to be murdered by the Polish people. That's after the Holocaust. You can bring that up. You could talk about the fact, and you see this in Schindler's List, of that image of Jews being, I believe it was, being deported to the camps from the ghetto, of that little girl screaming, "Go away, Jews, we hate you, Jews." I mean, that is the reality of, not everyone, but that is what the Jews faced from their Polish neighbors when the Nazis took control of Poland and started sending Jews to the death camps. That little girl shouting, "Go away, Jews, bad Jews," and all the things. You have to watch Schindler's List if you don't remember what I'm referring to here. But between that attitude, between the murders which did take place either before, during, or after the Holocaust, murdering Jews who lived in the areas which were Poland, and what about the fact, I actually went back to Poland. I've been several times to the area, to Poland, and to the Ukraine, and to other areas where my family was murdered by those who were aiding and abetting the Nazis, including the Ukrainian police. But if you go to the Majdanek death camp, it is in the city of Lublin in Poland, and it's in the middle of town. So don't tell me, if you are a Pole living in that town, you didn't know what was going on in that camp. It is in the center of town, and today, if you go there, and I'm actually not in favor of high schoolers going and visiting Poland, and we can dedicate a whole show to whether or not young Jews should go to Poland or not. We could talk about that. But if you go to Lublin, Poland today, you can see where Majdanek is, people riding their bikes as if it was a central park of some kind, people eating at the restaurant, which is inside. Yeah, there's a restaurant, at least there was when I was there visiting and paying tribute to those who perished in the Holocaust. A restaurant there, a bike riding path, people having picnics inside a death camp. That is the Polish, I'm not saying all Poles, but that is the attitude of some of the Polish people, even today. So imagine what it was like in 1941. So the Poles here trying to downplay their role in the Holocaust. That's really what this legislation is all about. It's disgusting. It should be condemned, as it was by Israel, and the rest of the world should recognize. And all this happening, by the way, on this International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which I honestly don't know too much about. If you want to explain it to me, exactly. We have Yom HaShoah. We have that already. This day, I guess this is for the non-Jewish world, I guess, about the Holocaust. I mean, I guess this is a relatively new concept, perhaps, a new day, which you see on Twitter and Facebook, people talking about it. If you want to discuss that with me, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. But the Poles need to step up and take responsibility for what they did. Naftali Bennett, Minister of Education here in Israel, had a well-penned op-ed in the New York Times the other day, titled, "My Country Bars Enemies from Entry, Yours Would Do the Same." This in reference, of course, to Israel's recent decision that it will not allow BDS leaders into the country. Dan Diker from the Jerusalem Center of Public Affairs was my guest. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about this new Israeli legislation. And as our Education Minister Naftali Bennett explains, BDS is a new name for an age-old strategy, demonizing and delegitimizing the Jewish people. He goes on to say in his op-ed in the New York Times, BDS leaders themselves make no attempt to hide that their goal is not changing Israeli policy, but eliminating the country. The logic behind this new policy is sound. We won't welcome, this is Israelis' policy here, we won't welcome enemy soldiers into our territory. If you actively work for our destruction, which these individuals most certainly do, you can't come into our home. In other words, he is saying there's no difference between an enemy combatant in uniform and a member of or a leader of the BDS movement. Here's the truth, says Naftali Bennett. Similar procedures are common practice in most democratic countries. In the U.S., for instance, the I-94W form issued by Department of Homeland Security asks visitors if they have criminal records, if they are involved in espionage, or if they helped Nazi Germany. If the answer to any of these questions is positive, that person may be refused entry. The same principles guided Israel's decision, and that's the reason why Israel is banning BDS leaders from entering this country. Finally, he goes on to say, the movement's leaders, the BDS movement, that is, they don't hide their goals, and some of their organizations even collaborate with convicted terrorists in their attempts to destroy Israel. And he goes on to give examples of BDS leaders in cahoots with known terrorists. Finally, Israel's decision to expose those out to hurt us sends a clear message. Those who seek our destruction are not welcome in our home. Any other country in a similar situation would do the same. So well done, Naftali Bennett, Minister Bennett, on that op-ed, which he penned just the other day in the New York Times. Moving on here, World Israel News, Margot Dudkevich reports that the Jerusalem District Court the other day, on Thursday, sentenced 3 Israeli Arabs to prison terms ranging from 3 years to 15 years for the 2015 death of Alexander Leibovich. If you remember, he was the 64-year-old on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, going home to Jerusalem when his car was pelted with rocks, causing him to lose control, and he was killed in the crash. He was murdered in that crash. He died in the hospital. So security forces arrested 5 Israeli Arabs involved in the rock throwing, all from an eastern Jerusalem neighborhood. On Thursday, the court gave Mohammed Abu Kaf, one of those involved, a 15-year sentence. Walid Firas al-Atrash, 13.5 years. And another one of the minors, 3 years. Another one of those involved was already sentenced. I don't think these sentences are strict enough, are harsh enough, rather. 15 years for one, 13.5 for another. And the family agrees. The family of the victim were, on one hand, glad that there was justice, but they were frustrated that the 5 of them were actually convicted of manslaughter. That was the term used. It was not murder. They were convicted of manslaughter for the deaths. They believe that the sentences should have been longer, that the crime was more severe than manslaughter. And one of the family members was quoted on Ynet saying, "A rock is a murder weapon, and this should be remembered and anchored in Israeli law." And we've talked about this on my show for years and years and years. For all of those who have been murdered here in Israel as a result of rock attacks. A rock is a weapon. Anybody who throws a rock with the intent to hurt, to harm, to kill, to murder, in the name of jihad, should spend a lot of time behind bars, perhaps never to see the light of day again. That's my opinion on this issue. Somebody who I've gone through these rock attacks, and thank God I came out unscathed, but others did not. Israelis were murdered. Children were murdered. Babies were murdered in rock attacks, and these people should be put away for a long, long time. Another story here from World Israel News. We had a lot of rain in Israel over the weekend, Thursday, Friday, on Shabbat, Saturday. And one thing that was uncovered as a result of the rain were IEDs, improvised explosive devices, in PA territory. According to this report, 12 improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were uncovered as a result of the driving rains. It's actually the PA which discovered them on a road in Area A, and I would bet a lot of money that they were planted there with the intention of trying to murder Israeli soldiers on patrol in those areas. So this is, I guess, another phenomenon that we have to deal with here. It's bad enough we have to deal with rock attacks, gunfire, rocket attacks now, and I don't think it's the first time, but IEDs planted on the side of the road. That is some serious business here, which Israel has to pay attention to. I guess similar to what U.S. troops had to deal with in Baghdad. Again, I don't think it's the first we've seen it, but something we have to watch out for here in Israel. Our soldiers have to be safe. Another news, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad threatening the Jewish state, threatening to fire a Scud missile at Ben Gurion International Airport if Israel continues to take out targets in Syria. Apparently, he said this in a phone conversation with Russia's President Vladimir Putin. More rhetoric from Bashar al-Assad. Imagine if Israel would have turned over the Golan to the Assad regime. Imagine the situation in Israel today. Thank God that never happened. And those who still think, and I know that the European Union and others still don't recognize Israel's legitimacy in the Golan. Imagine if we would turn that area over to this madman who gasses his own people in chemical attacks. Thank God that never bore fruit. And he can continue to threaten us all he wants, but we are strong, we're here to stay, and we are not going to cower to the Syrian regime. Finishing off here with just two other quick stories. Number one, I saw in today's Jerusalem Post, Israel is sending its first ever skeleton athlete to the Winter Olympics in 2018 here in South Korea. They actually begin in just next month, February. I'm not a huge Winter Olympics guy myself, but I'll definitely be paying attention to A.J. Edelman, who made Aliyah from Boston. 26-year-old competes in it's a form of the bobsled, I guess, called skeleton. I've never even heard of the sport, but this year Israel is sending 10 athletes to the Winter Olympics, most in skating, but now we have a skeleton athlete, so we want to wish him well. A.J. Edelman going for the gold, wearing the blue and white. We are proud of him. Just a couple other things. This Friday, these are things that I'm personally involved with. Friday, this is a very unique. If you remember the 3 boys murdered by Hamas a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and the horrible kidnapping and murder, which unfortunately had to bring the country together, and the country was brought together like never before. The result actually afterwards was the operation in Gaza against Hamas in 2014. But this Friday, the family of murdered, slain teen Gilad Sher will be here in Gush Etzion planting trees in his memory. Not only will they be there, but they are bringing along about 20 families who have named their born children over the last 3 years. They've named a child in their family Gilad in memory of Gilad Shaar. So I'm anticipating an emotional day planting trees in Gilad's memory by the families and the children of those who are taking on his namesake. Truly, it's going to be an emotional event in Gush Etzion this Friday morning along the new promenade, which is actually also in memory of the 3 boys and also Ezra Schwartz, the lookout point in memory of Ezra Schwartz, the Boston teen murdered 2 years ago in a shooting attack here in Gush Etzion. Finally, Dames of the Dance. If you are familiar, it's also a local Gush Etzion dance troupe who have now been performing for 10 years, and the money that comes in for the shows always goes to a good cause. And this year they're earmarking the funds for a lone soldiers home, which actually I'm proud, part of the Gush Etzion Foundation, to be a part of this project to build a new lone soldiers home in Gush Etzion in the community of Rosh Tzurim. So check out, if you are a female, it's females performing, and the audience is also female. The shows this year, Monday and Wednesday, February 19th and 21st in Alon Shvut at 8 p.m. And then in Efrat, a matinee, 5 p.m. for kids, Monday, February 26th. So again, the 19th and 21st in Alon Shvut in the community center at 8 p.m., 5 p.m. matinee on the 26th in Efrat. Check out the show. You can send me an email. I'll give you the information. You can go directly to the site, tixwise, tixwisc.co.il/Dames of the Dance. Get your tickets today. I hear it's a great show. I've never seen it because men are not involved in the show, not involved in the production, but it's their 10th anniversary, and the money goes to a good cause. Lone Soldiers Home for IDF soldiers who leave their families in the U.S. and Canada and other places and come and serve in the Israel Defense Forces. That is going to do it for us here today on Israel Uncensored. My name is Josh Hasten. Be in touch during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com on Facebook. It's Joshua Hasten on Twitter at Josh Hasten. enjoy this. At least I am. I love the winter. I love the winter weather. It's not raining now, but we had 3-4 great days of rain. Hopefully it'll come back soon. I love the cold, love the winter. But most importantly, when we talk, please God, again, next Monday between now and that time, everybody out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom from Gush Etzion, Israel.